Glaucus was a fisherman, and one day, when he brought his fish back and laid them on the grass of a very secluded island, he noticed that they immediately began coming back to life and going back to the ocean. He was shocked and amazed and said, "What herb could have done this?" So he picked up the herbs and took a bite. Scarce had he tasted the plant when he found himself agitated with a longing desire for the water. He couldn't restrain himself, but said goodbye to land and plunged into the ocean. The gods of the water received him graciously and admitted him to the honor of their society. They obtained the consent of Oceanus and Tethys, the ancient Titans, that all that was mortal in him should be washed away. Then he lost all sense of his former nature and all consciousness. When he recovered, he found himself changed in mind and form. His hair was sea green and trailed behind him in the water. His shoulders grew broad, and what had been thighs and legs were the form of a fish. The sea gods complimented him on this change of his appearance, and he fancied himself rather a good-looking personage. So in his new god form, he's going around the ocean, and he stumbles upon a beautiful maiden named Scylla. She was a water nymph, and as soon as he saw her, he immediately fell in love with her. He tried to talk to her and win her heart with affections and jokes, but she ran away immediately until she was on the top of a cliff overlooking the sea. Once at the top, she looked back to see who was talking to her. Was it a god or a sea animal? And she really was impressed by his shape and color. Glaucus emerged from the water and, supporting himself against a rock, said, "Maiden, I am no monster nor a sea animal, but a god, and neither Proteus nor Triton ranks higher than I. Once I was a mortal and followed the sea for a living, but now I belong wholly to it." And added, "But what avails all this if it fails to move your heart?" He went on and on, but Scylla ran away. Glaucus didn't know what to do, so he thought that he could consult the enchantress named Circe. He went to her island and said, "Goddess, I entreat your pity. You alone can relieve the pain I suffer. The power of herbs I know as well as anyone, for it is to them I owe my change of form. I love Scylla. I am ashamed to tell you how I have sued and promised to her, and how scornfully she has treated me. I beseech you to use your incantations or potent herbs, if they are more prevailing, not to cure me of my love, for that I do not wish, but to make her share it and yield me a like return." Circe replied, for she was not insensible to the attractions of the sea-green deity, "You had better pursue a willing object. You are worthy to be sought instead of having to seek in vain. Be not different. Know your own worth. I protest to you that even I, goddess though I be, and learned in the virtues of plants and spells, should not know how to refuse you. If she scorns you, scorn her. Meet one who is ready to meet you halfway, and thus make a due return to both at once." Glaucus replied, "Sooner shall trees grow at the bottom of the ocean, and seaweed on the top of mountains, than I will cease to love Scylla, and her alone." Circe was indignant, but she could not punish him. Neither did she wish to do so, for she liked him too well. So she turned all her wrath against her rival, poor Scylla. She took plants of poisonous powers and mixed them together with incantations and charms. Then she passed through her crowd of anthropomorphic monstrous beasts, the victims of her art, and proceeded to the coast of Sicily, where Scylla lived. There was a little bay on the shore to which Scylla used to resort in the heat of the day, to breathe the air of the sea and bathe in its waters. Here the goddess poured her poisonous mixture and muttered over it incantations of mighty power. Scylla came as usual and plunged into the water up to her waist. What was her horror to perceive? At once she became horrified when she noticed that there were serpents and barking monsters surrounding her. At first, she could not imagine they were part of herself and tried to run from them and to drive them away, but as she ran, she carried them with her, and when she tried to touch her limbs, she found her hands touch only the yawning jaws of monsters. Scylla remained rooted to the spot, and her temper grew as ugly as her form. and she took pleasure in devouring hapless mariners who came within her grasp. In her monstrous form, she destroyed many seamen, notably Ulysses and 6 of his companions, till at last she was turned into a rock, and as such still continues to be a terror to mariners.